Hiya fam, are you ready to get weird? That's the question of the day. If I can find the page, let's chase some sunshine, huh? So this pertains to a project that I've been working on for maybe a year now, a while. It's been a while. I started working on it shortly before the chaos times at our old home, so a while. It has not gotten any traction visible to the outside world in a little while. I'm going to try not to ramble, but I'm really excited, so I make you no promises. Sorry. Let's just dive in. Let's start with a shameless plug, shall we? Have I mentioned that I have a Russian BFF? I totally have a Russian BFF. She's absolutely wonderful. She has a website. It's called Sun and Colors, and it is extremely simple, extremely helpful, and it is beautifully executed. It is a database of colors, mostly watercolor paints, but it's just that before and after, where she will hang the swatches in a window for, I believe, 4 months. She goes into specific detail in the FAQ of her site, but I strongly recommend you check it out, and I will be honest, this is kind of a Mad Max style testing, but it's so handy. It's so handy. And I'll go into that a little more in a bit. But maybe a year or so ago, yeah, at the beginning of this, so I got this bright idea to utilize some of paint's fugitive nature as a feature, not a bug. Know what I mean? I started looking at my paints very differently, and especially since I paint, a lot of tutus and bright and sparkly things, I had a lot to work with. But the wheels began turning, and then my Russian BFF reaches out to me and says that one of the paints that she tested faded to nothing. Nothing, you ask? Literally nothing. Faded to nothing. Poof. Gone. What? Right? I have so many questions. But this paint is rated as fugitive, as in she exposed it to sunshine and it literally disappeared. Minor caveat, there are other factors that will affect fading, such as humidity, oxygen levels, oxygen exposure, I should say, and the list goes on. But it is rated as fugitive, therefore we shall assume the major component to this disappearing act is in fact sunshine and time. Mostly sunshine, right? So where are we going with this? Great question. Thank you for asking. So I said we're chasing sunshine. We're going to chase sunshine. That's exactly what we're going to do. If I am going to be working on a series where we're taking advantage of the fugitive nature of the paints, I want to be able to see the before and after. I need that information in order to plan appropriately. And maybe, see the in-between, between the before and the after. And just getting that information is really slow, and I am impatient. So, I will also be putting things into my window for some Mad Max style testing. So, if it makes no sense, I guess two just really quick examples. So if I have a painting and there's a space that has fugitive alizarin crimson, or it's alizarin crimson, which is fugitive, and it's right next to permanent alizarin crimson, which is lightfast. Over time, one will fade away and it will get much lighter. It will basically look sun bleached, and one will not. And it will be a totally different scene after, maybe a year of sunshine. Or you can consider, and actually opera pink. Just these neon babies right here. If you have opera pink, so there's fluorescent dyes, which absolutely will fade. And then the pink pigment can also fade. So if I'm painting, if I'm painting litter, I'm painting literal trash, like a candy bar wrapper or something, in a field, right? You have this hot pink garbage, literal trash, surrounded by a lush green, which is going to be lightfast, surrounding it. Think about that. That's absurd. Like, just that's absurd. And we're doing it. Hang on, I need to let the cat in, apparently. Hi, Mama. So, and now, knowing that I have a paint which fades away completely, oh man, so there's so many possibilities here, and they are painfully slow. But still, it's kind of unreal. So we're going to be testing the swatches. So especially where other factors can play a role, I figured I wanted to get some swatches into, you know, my windows as well. And it's going to be fiddly. I know it's going to be fiddly. So I have some swatches, and I have some, or I should say swatches of individual paints and swatches of some mixtures. So this will give us a chance to see how these paintings will likely eventually fade, so that we can plan better, I guess. So for each of the individual swatches, it's just the mass tone, and then getting more dilute, because that's another thing. If it is dilute, it might change how much it fades. Some paints, if they're fully concentrated, they won't fade at all, but if they're dilute, just gone. So wanted to have that. And then for the mixtures, so each mixture has 2 paints, but it's 4 lines. So if it's paint A and paint B, we'll say the first 2 lines are very heavy on paint A, and it's the mass tone and dilute. And then the last 2 lines are heavy on paint B, the mass tone and dilute. So this hopefully will help address the fiddliness, you know. And I will just kind of fan these out. I will have scans of these on my blog at gingersnapshot.wordpress.com. These I'm gonna put a link down in the place with the stuff that will take you to it, so you can see, and then we'll check in regularly and see how they change. Also, so they're gonna go into the window tonight, but each is going to be cut in half and scanned. Half will go into the window, half will go into a dock drawer. I have not cut them all in half yet because I didn't want to lose any pieces. But that is what's happening here. So, and that is why we're getting so gung-ho with these. So when I got this idea a while ago, and I realized, you know, that I wanted to work with more Fugitive paints, I immediately got to work, and I'm setting up my Outlaw palette with all my Fugitive colors I could get my hands on, basically. This is not all of them, but the Outlaw palette is very heavy on, you know, reds and violets, because those are usually the more lightfast colors. And, you know, some colors were added and removed over time as I'm doing more tests and looking at things. So that's what we're doing. This is our next step with this project. Before we do go, though, I need a moment on my soapbox, because I got some feelings on this one. So lightfast is complicated. Most paint manufacturers will provide lightfast ratings, and those ratings are the result of testing the pigment or a pigment, possibly decades ago, possibly from a different manufacturer. You know, there's that component, but even still, a lightfast pigment does not guarantee a lightfast paint. That rating, for the vast majority of things, that rating is not of like the actual watercolor paint in the tube as you buy it, you know? So there's that. But then also, lightfast testing is basically in museum conditions. So if something is considered lightfast, it is considered as such so long as you have the controlled temperature and humidity and no sunlight on the painting, and, you know, just, it's complicated. Take these ratings with a very big grain of salt. I'm going to have a probably very nerdy video on this, going over it, because it is really neat, but it's just it's not as simple as, you know, what it says on the tube. Reliable is also complicated. So is this test going to be reliable? Are my swatches and the results that I get going to be reliable? It's not a super, this is the most reliable that I will be able to get for me, we'll say. But there's other factors that affect fading. So there's, you know, temperature, humidity, oxygen levels, pollution levels. There's a lot. The easiest way to explain some of these differences. So let's say I have a bundle and I have the paint, the paper, the brushes, and a tutorial to do something easy and specific. And I take this bundle and I give this bundle to somebody in the Sahara Desert. So it's very dry, very sunny. And then I take this bundle and I hand it to somebody in Scotland, where it's very rainy and very gloomy. Do you honestly expect them to be able to make the same painting between the two of them? Think about it. I do not. I don't expect that to be possible, because there's just, the circumstances are totally different. And that can play a role. So bearing that in mind, the best way to test this stuff is to test it yourself and put it in your own window, because nothing is going to be able to replicate your circumstances like you actually doing the test. Do you know what I mean? Does not need to be fancy. But, you know, I do it on the paint on the paper that I usually use. When I do commissions, I use this paper, but thicker. Like, I use the 300 pound. This is Fabriano Artistico 140 pound cold press. This is my jam. You know, this is going to be the closest thing to a time machine that I will be able to produce for myself, if you will. On that note, actually, so it's a story for another day. I don't want to dive into it, because you deserve more than just like a half-assed throwaway explanation. Do you know what I mean? But Prussian blue is also wicked wonky, okay? And it's not really due to the sunshine so much as all that other stuff. So it will get its own videos, but just know, Prussian blue is going, you know, the various Prussian blues that I have on hand are also being tested. And I will leave it at that, because, again, there's a lot to unpack on that. But, you know, there's a lot that goes into this. So this is the part where I really get onto my soapbox. So I don't want to hop too much on it, but seriously, like, just PSA, Fugitive paints are not bad, okay? So this is there's a lot to it. Everybody has their reasons for and against their choices in regards to what paints and what supplies they use, and that's totally fine. I know artists who will not put Fugitive paints in their main palettes because they don't want to accidentally include them in commissions. That's totally fair. I personally do commissions with a lot of Fugitive paints already, and I make sure to go over some of this with the client. But, you know, I know other artists who paint almost exclusively in their sketchbooks, and then they realize that a certain color is Fugitive, and it almost feels like, oh no, I can't use it now. And I don't want us to fixate on this, okay? Like, please, guys, enjoy painting. Enjoy your pretty colors. And especially if you are painting in a sketchbook, will certainly not be basking in the sun all day. Like, don't let my outlaw palette put you down, okay? And that is, I will get off my soapbox now. But just, they're not bad, okay? Do your own tests, look into it, but I guess don't discount any pretty colors just because they might change in time. Realistically, in 50 years, I won't be looking so hot either. Just saying, please enjoy painting. That's what I want you to do. And I will get off my soapbox now. Before I forget though, no, one more thing. Now that we're all riled up, right? How can you get this gorgeous paint? You kind of can't. I'm really sorry. So these are pen holder paints made by Dan Barrett. Here is the links with all of the stuff. So he sells handmade watercolors on his site. The PY100, which this is, sunflower yellow, is completely sold out. Believe me, I checked. No professional brands will carry it either, that I am, at least none that I've found, probably because it is so Fugitive, but other indie paint makers might. I am going to look into it. I absolutely will share with you if I find any. But just to be upfront with you, Dan is revamping his business, so I know that the next time the shop is going to have a watercolor replenish and sale is, I think, April of 2023. I'm so sorry. But there is a Patreon. He does have a Patreon, Dan Barrett Penholder Paints. There is a dot card tier, which 5 out of 5 stars, do recommend to a friend. And they're lovely, and even though the site will not have a sale updated, the monthly dot cards will keep happening. That is not going to change. And they're lovely, guys. They're so good. And then on the YouTube, he also live streams on Sundays, and often will mull his own paints on those live streams so that you can actually watch it. So please send Dan some love, but please do not harass him. I'm telling you right now, at the very least, he is not going to have any for you for a while, and I'm so sorry. But like I said, if I find it from another indie paint maker, I will tell you. And then so this is the goods, right? The color of the sunflower yellow is very similar to PY100, which is available in multiple paint brands. This is actually another pen holder paint made by the same person. This is sunset yellow. It is gorgeous. This is actually a closer match, at least in hue. This is Shinhan's Permanent Yellow Deep, but a lot of paint brands do make this. Like, you might already have this in your stock. It is also Fugitive, not as outrageously as the sunflower yellow. And again, I'm so sorry, guys, but if I find it anywhere, I will tell you. Aside of that, watch this space, and also go check out Sun and Colors, because you can see the other paints, especially stuff you already have, and see how each paint has fared in those tests, because it is super helpful. And I'm so sorry, guys. I don't mean to be like, look at this wonderful thing, you can't have any, but I'm really sorry. If I find any, I will share, I promise. My question for you, my fellow mess makers, what do you think of Fugitive paints? There's no shame either way. This is a judgment-free zone, but let me know. And does my bright ideas maybe make me think twice about maybe defaulting to not wanting to play with the bright, pretty colors? Let me know. And any questions, concerns, or sarcastic remarks, please do not be shy. Otherwise, until next time, take care.